Hello humans, I'm the Alien Doctor, but you could call me Alien, and welcome back to another tutorial here on Minecraft Bedrock Edition. Today I'm going to be showing you how to build this very simple villager trading hall. This probably only works on Bedrock Edition. I haven't actually tested if it works on Java Edition. It's designed for Bedrock Edition. This is also an update video for my previous villager trading hall, which you can see over there. There are a couple of minor changes on this version that make it better, including a couple of versions that make it actually work on the latest update. Also, full disclaimer, I did design this myself, however it's so simple that there is a chance that other people may have had the same design. I've not intentionally copied anyone else, and yeah, I just want to put that out there. So before we get into the tutorial, let's go over how it works and what the things I have changed on it. There will be timestamps in the description and chapters on the playback bar thingy, so you can obviously skip this part if you don't care. But it's actually incredibly simple. So we have a villager on this minecart rail, which then, gets put on this activator rail, which then makes them fall into this, pod where you can then trade with them and recycle their trades and that sort of thing. When they're stood on this pressure plate, they then power all this redstone torch line, pushing this piston back and then unpowering the activator rail, which means that a minecart will go over that without pushing any mobs in there. It's actually really quite clever and really quite simple little design. We have the villager in water so that it never unlinks from its bed, because if they're in water, can you see how they're bobbing up and down? That means they're never going to unlink from their bed because they're constantly trying to get to it, if that makes sense, because they're bobbing up and down in water. So yeah, that's overall a really nice little tactic. However, you may be wondering what has changed since the last design. Well, first of all, we have added this repeater. This repeater basically means when the farm gets loaded and unloaded, the villager won't actually take any damage. And I realize we actually need to do it on all of these, don't we? So I believe what had been happening with the previous design is that if you would unload the villager trading hall, especially if it was on a chunk border, when you then load it back in, the piston would be retracted for a little bit, which would, cause the villager to take damage. Now with this, I found that adding that extra little timing in there means that it doesn't take damage. The other thing is, if we summon in a villager real quickly, they now don't take damage when they go in there. Previously, the piston would get trapped inside their head, giving them damage. Obviously, now that we've added that timing in there, it doesn't. I'm not quite sure why that happens, but that's what happens. So I added in a little bit of a repeater in there. Last but not least, I have also basically made this top area a lot bigger, adding all this extra glass and buttons. And we're going to fly over to the old design to tell you why. So over here at the old design, let's just try and use it, because most of you will be like, oh yeah, this should work. There's nothing wrong with this, right? Well, let's put this guy in here and just do this. Boom, it don't work. So then you might be like, but Alien, just put glass here and here and here and all these places. Surely it'll work now. Well, let's try it again. And the answer is no, it does not work now. What happens when we do this is the villager gets out of the minecart and then gets instantly put back in the minecart. It's weird, okay? Don't question it. However, if we do this, and we actually don't need all of these blocks right here, we can actually just remove those. But if we do this, then for some reason it actually works, which is mildly strange. And you can see there, he took damage because we haven't added in this extra repeater. Now he won't take damage. Also, we need to kill this guy. And yeah, the reason being is that in a Bedrock Edition update, I'm not actually quite sure when this change was implemented, but activator rails no longer will dump mobs into an area deemed unsafe. So basically, because this is a drop, like a hole, the game decided that it was unsafe and that, it's not going to drop it in there. So we have to use this button to trick the game into dumping the mob into there. However, you may be like, but Alien, buttons aren't classed as full blocks anymore. And that's right, that they aren't. But the weird thing is if you do this with a trapdoor or with a sea coral fan, it doesn't work. It has to be with a button. It's very weird and possibly going to break soon. But when it does, check the pinned comment, because I will tell you everything you can do to fix it in the pinned comment. So yeah, that's the other thing. Before you build this tutorial, do check the pinned comment, because I'm not sure if this activator rail thing is a bug or not. So if you do have to not do all this extra part, then yeah, check the pinned comment, because I will basically tell you in the pinned comment. Checking pinned comments on my tutorials is generally a good thing to do. weird activator rail mechanics aside, let's actually hop into some other things to do with this villager trading hall. So obviously we've got this piston here, and I'd recommend putting a light block on it. That just stops any mobs from spawning in your system. We've also got these levers here. These levers just unpower the activator rails. So if you want to order your villagers, then what you can do, let's say you wanted a villager here, which there already is, not a villager here, but then a villager here. You'd flick this lever, which obviously closes the piston. And then, as you can see here, the villager is now going to go into the next one along, missing a spot here because maybe you want like 2 librarians, a cartographer, and then another cartographer or something. I don't know. Whatever you want. You might just want it in like a specific order. So now with this lever, you can. Oh, that lever was there before, I guess. But yeah, you can now with that lever. So obviously, if you don't know what a villager trading hall is, a real quick breakdown of it is basically it's a place where you can trade with your villagers. Now, let's say you want to re-roll a villager's trades. You would simply destroy its workstation and then replace it down. And then after you've got a trade which you want, like for example, let's say I wanted this knockback 2 buck, you could trade with it once, and then this trade here will never change. The price might change, but it will always have knockback 2 bucks. It will always sell knockback 2 bucks. And as you can see here, if we destroy it and then replace its workstation, it will relink to the workstation, but its trade will still be the same. So yeah, that's also how to re-roll your villagers' trades. So that's enough of me waffling. Let's actually get into the tutorial. So to build this villager trading hall, you're going to need the following items: 15 solid blocks, 13 pieces of glass, 1 light block like glowstone or a sea lantern, 4 redstone torches, 1 piece of redstone dust, 1 lever, 1 bed, 1 of any type of workstation. Different workstations give villagers different trades. I'd recommend doing some research if you don't know about that. A water bucket or some ice or something. Obviously, you're going to need a villager. You're going to need an activator rail, any type of trapdoor, a sticky piston, any type of pressure plate, as long as it's not one of the like pressured ones, so like a stone or a wooden one or something, redstone repeater, and then any type of button, along with any amount of solid blocks, any amount of powered rails, any amount of rails, and an amount of levers. The reason those last ones are like any amount is because it depends on how big you make your village trading hall, but the rest of those items are per 1 pod. So anyway, I'll show you how to make 1 pod. So to start off with, you're going to need to find the area that you want to build, and we're just going to imagine that the floor that you're going to be standing on is this sandstone floor. So we're not going to build it up high like we have this one. We're going to imagine that the sandstone floor is this iron block floor, if that makes sense. So start off by digging a hole here and then another hole behind it that goes 2 more blocks down, like so. And then you're going to want to place in a piece of redstone dust here, followed by your repeater there, and then also make sure to place a solid block back here. So this is future alien because I've realized I made a bit of a mistake. You need to make sure to put your repeater on 4 ticks. So click it. So you need to click it once, twice, thrice. There we go. And yeah, there we go. Your repeater is now on a 4-tick delay. Make sure you do that. Don't be silly and forget to do it like what I did. So then what you're going to want to do after you've got something that looks a little bit like this is destroy this block here and put a redstone torch on top of it, followed by another block, redstone torch, sticky piston, redstone torch on top of it, a block, and then a piece of glass. You could put a solid block here, however I prefer the way it looks with glass. You can then add in a couple of more blocks, so place in a block here, your light block here if you are using one, and then a block here and a block here, like so. You're then going to need to place some pieces of glass around it like this. So go up by 4 in all of these corners, but leave the front open, so just these 2 sides. Place in a button right here. Place in some temporary scaffolding block just here, and then you can destroy that, and then just make it go round like this. Another temporary scaffolding block to put your glass around here, and then a temporary one here. There we go. So you now should have glass in all of these locations. You're then going to need to place in another temporary block here to place in your glass. 1, 2, like so. Destroy that, and then place in yourself a trapdoor. Then place a lever on this block here, followed by a water bucket or just a water source there that should flow into that hole like that and not destroy anything. And then you're also going to need to make sure to put an activator rail right here. You may also need to put in some other rails just to make sure that, you know, they are actually like facing in the right direction, because we want the rails to travel this way or this way. And then you're just going to need to get however many like rails you have, and obviously you'd connect the next ones up. So you'd have like a rail here and then another activator rail here, and then here's where you'd build the next pod, and then another rail here, and then another activator rail here, and you know, you just continue like that. So you'd have another pod here and another pod here, kind of in the same way I've built it up over here. And then in between these, every so often, you're going to want to place in a powered rail and then put a lever on the back. That's just to make sure that, you know, the minecart that carries your villager doesn't lose momentum. But there we go. That's actually the tutorial completely finished. So now that you actually have one of these pods set up, it's obviously time to get your villagers in here. So for the point of this video, I'm just going to use this bigger version that I had built before the video. So what you're going to need to do is get your minecart rail hooked up to this top minecart rail, and then you're going to need to place down a minecart and put your villager in that minecart. You can use boats and leads to transport your villagers. On Bedrock Edition, you can actually lead boats whilst a mob is in it, which is a really useful feature for transporting villagers. But anyway, you need to somehow get your villager into the minecart. Then let's say we want this villager in this first pod. We are going to just simply press the button for the minecart, and then that guy is going to go in there safe and sound. So the first thing you're going to need to do is come under here, place 2 blocks, and then place a bed. You're going to need to wait for the villager to actually link to this bed, and you know he has linked once green particles appear. So green particles, as we saw then, appeared on the villager, and we could just about see them underneath the bed. So now once you've got the villager and the bed linked, you're then going to want to place in your workstation, and if you crouch and then place it on the lever, then there we go, you can place in your workstation, and then he'll link to the workstation. And as you can see here, he's now a librarian because that's the lectern. And then obviously you would just re-roll his trades until you get a trade that you like. So what happens if you wanted to miss a spot in your trading hall? So you wanted the next villager to go minecart track and then actually go into this pod instead of this pod. Well, you'd simply flick this lever, disabling this pod temporarily, so that we can then put in another villager to go into that one down there, as you saw just then. And then obviously we do the same thing. So we would place 2 blocks here, place in our bed, wait for them to link. So yep, there we go. I can see green particles. And then obviously we would put down a workstation where this guy would then link to it. And yeah, then we'd obviously just be able to continue re-rolling his trades like you do. But that is actually the end of this video of how to build this incredibly simple, cheap and easy Minecraft Bedrock Edition villager trading hall. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe to join the Alien Empire today. I'll see you in the next video coming soon. Bye.